I now call this regular meeting of the Davenport Community School District Board of Directors to order. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Director Potts, would you please read our mission and vision statements?
Mission statement. The Davenport Community School District is dedicated to growing excellence in academics, the arts, and athletics for every child by ensuring the highest quality education in an environment shaped by our diverse community, preparing our students to be lifelong learners and productive citizens. Vision statement. Education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, and inspires our students, parents, staff, and community to answer the question, what if?
Thank you, Director Potts. Director Barnes, would you please read the guiding principles?
Opportunity. We provide abundant opportunities to empower students to reach their full potential academically, creatively, and socially. Collaboration. We foster an environment that allows students, families, and community stakeholders to come together for the betterment of our students' education and future. Transparency. We share relevant and important information with our students, families, and the community to maintain open and productive communication.
Thank you, Director Barnes. Superintendent Schneckhoff, would you please read the goals?
2 focus areas. Goal number 2, increase access and success for all students. And number 4, foster the innovative use of finances, facilities, and staff.
Thank you, Superintendent. I see we have no recognitions tonight. We'll move on to presentations. First presentation and only presentation is 3.01 Success Week. I'll turn it over to the Superintendent.
As Diane and her team come to the table, this is a journey that started over the last couple of years where we offer in Davenport, actually in the last couple of years, we've required all juniors to take the ACT and we paid for it, which our statistics show that students that take the ACT are more likely to go to and through a certificated program in Davenport. But what we realized is that not every student is taking a path to go to where they're going to utilize the ACT. So this wonderful team put together a week for all students called Success Week. So I'll turn it over to Diane and her team. Diane, if you wouldn't mind doing some quick introductions, I'd appreciate it. Thank you guys for being here.
Hi, thank you for having us this evening. You'll see all the team members on one of our slides coming up, but this evening, Lisa Baxter and Allie Vanderbilt are part of the core team that includes David Ford from the AEA that have been meeting on a consistent basis to really get the Success Week up and running. So you'll see a little bit more about that. But again, thank you for having us. So on this first slide, just looking at the quote, I want you to think back to each of your journeys through enrolling, enlisting, and or employment. And each of us have had a different route to where we are today. And that happens with our students every single day. And so we really had a team that started thinking about the different experiences students have pre-K-12 through the entire Davenport learning experience. And this quote really sums it up. The best way to predict your future is to create it. And when we provide those opportunities, that will help with being able to think about the opportunities students have. So the essential question here really becomes, what is our system? What is within our system that provides opportunity to imagine and create futures for students? So in our Project Next, you'll hear 2 terms. Project Next was the big macro look at what is happening within Davenport. And then we really started honing in on the specific Success Week that we will get to. So the purpose 1 of this team that came together was to align our pre-K-12 system to work, college, and career. And then the second purpose is to design a meaningful week that will inspire students when planning for their future. And we were really looking at that junior year. So with those 2 purposes in mind, we did have a planning team that came together on multiple occasions over the course of last year. And so the names are listed on here, and it was a very comprehensive, different stakeholder groups. Thinking about, again, where in our system do we help support students to create that vision for their future? So we started out quickly with just a data review. What's the data telling us? And we used the Future Ready District Summary data dashboards that provided some data. And what we found quickly as we delved into the data is that we really had quite a variance on what our understanding of this was. And so this dashboard really helped us understand where we were currently within our system and what we could do moving forward.
So I was in front of you earlier this year talking about our DCAP, or our District Career and Academic Plan. And this is the same data that we use for the DCAP as well as this. So we just want you to understand the data dig that we did compares to that. So when we were looking at this, we were looking at the ACT kind of in specific, and this data here is the students who have taken the ACT every year since 2019. Something that we'd like to point out is that 2020, 2021, where we had 844 students take it, that was our Gear Up cohort year. So when we had 82% of students participating, that was when we had our federal Gear Up grant the last time around.
The other piece that I'd like to point out is 22-23, we had 39% take ACT, but moving forward, when you think about our juniors and the Success Week that we're going to describe and give you an overview, it would be 100% of the students engaging in an assessment to prepare them for post-secondary.
So our big goal, I'm sure as you all know and understand, we can't just put another thing on everybody's plate. So the whole purpose of this was to really bring in how all of this works together and put it under one house. And so we integrated Buildings Growing Excellent plans as well as our District Growing Excellent plans, our DCSD goals, as I've already mentioned, our District Career and Academic Plan, as well as how this embeds in students' individual career and academic plans. And then we also brought up our Gear Up Iowa coaches, whose current cohort is the junior class. We then moved on to creating what we are calling a blueprint for success, or mile markers at the different grade levels for where we want students to be as they build their own success. So the idea behind Project Next is that idea behind what comes next. So what are we doing next? And as we look at what comes next and what you want to do next, we need to have an idea of where you are along the journey. So these are some examples of some ideas that we've tossed around for what those markers are. So in preschool, we know that enrollment is very important. In kindergarten, it's their readiness and foundational skills. In 3rd and 5th grade, we have literacy benchmarks. 8th grade, it's being on track for high school and their math proficiency. In 9th grade, for freshman year, we know that it's very important that they have the 6.5 credits as a minimum. And then 11th grade, the testing week is kind of the big conversation that we're really here to have.
The second purpose or goal of our Project Next team is to design a capstone testing week. So this week, which we named Steps to Success Week, will support all of our juniors. We want to help students prepare for that next big thing in their life after high school by taking an entry assessment that's going to be aligned to their post-secondary goals. This can sometimes be a hurdle for students for a variety of reasons. So this testing week, which will happen during the school day, the week of March 18th, will give every student the opportunity to take an important step towards their future plans by taking one or more of these assessments. Now, we plan to kick the week off in a spectacular way. We're super excited about this. We will have international speaker Joe Beckman come to Davenport. And Joe is a entertainer. Actually, we're using the word edutainer for Joe because he incorporates humor, music, motivational message, very heartfelt messages into his assemblies. And what we plan to do is he will go to each one of our 3 high schools that day to do an assembly with the juniors. Our mid-city students will join the high school in the schedule that works best for them to attend one of the assemblies as well. And there, he will inspire our juniors to plan for their futures. He often uses the themes of resiliency, confidence, finding your joy, and he helps you make connections to what you do today and how that impacts your tomorrows. Another thing we're going to do is we're going to provide every junior this book, Just Look Up. It's a super easy read, really student friendly. It's just a really positive message about, thinking about your life and your future and looking for the positive things in your life. We haven't quite worked through how we will incorporate the book and engage students in the book prior to the assemblies, but we're still working on plans to maybe during advisory, or we'll come up with something to make that connection for students, and they'll each have a copy of this. And then lastly, we always want to involve parents. So Joe will return that evening and he will do a free family event that night. And I expect he'll be a big draw for families and parents to come. And I envision sort of this captive audience where we can explain what Steps to Success Week is students and how this is an important step for our juniors. And then just celebrate the evening with fellowship led by Joe.
So we've referred to this Steps to Success Week a few times. So we just want to give you a brief overview of the current iteration of the plan for how we're going to do this week. As we stated, I just want to be clear, this is a draft schedule. This is supposed to be a capstone testing week that allows students to prepare for the next big step after high school. They can choose to participate in any number of these exams. So we have the ACT, the ASVAB, Work Keys, and ALEX. And the idea is that each school would be rotating through each one of these Tuesday through Friday at different locations. And we've been working out those different locations for where they can go, so that way we have enough space for each one of them. Like we said, each junior will have the opportunity to participate in one or more of these that aligns with their post-secondary plans. So for those of you who might not know, which I didn't on a few of these, what those assessments are, the ACT is generally for college entrance exam. It measures readiness for four-year institutions generally. We have the ASVAB, which is the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, which is for obviously entrance in the armed services. And every branch of the armed services uses that as kind of their entrance exam. It has 4 domains: verbal, math, science and technical, and spatial awareness. ALEX is a learning and assessment system for math used to determine a student's strengths and weaknesses, generally for community college, and it's used at Eastern Iowa Community College as well. And then Work Keys, this is the one that was new for me, is a system of assessments, curriculum, and job profiling that measures foundational workplace skills required for success in the workplace. And it's also used to increase opportunities for career changes and advancement. So we're really excited. Students will get a certificate, bronze, silver, gold, or platinum based on their test scores, which they can then hand in over to employers so they know where they're strong. Iowa has over 400 industries that recognize the Work Keys certification for candidates with essential skills in the workforce that they're looking for. So we're really excited to offer just those 4 different opportunities.
You're probably wondering how we're going to pay and what the plan is for the budget. And Lisa has been working diligently with Nikki to write an SCRA grant for submission for this year. And the grant is called Enroll, Enlist, Employ. And so we really think that encapsulates the vision for the capstone testing or assessment week. And then future funding, Title IV has well-rounded secondary career awareness and exploration activities. So, for example, currently we do pay for ACT for students who want to take it. So we would just be using that to continue to pay for the ACT. ALEX, Work Keys, and ASVAB there is no cost for those assessments, so that makes it easy. And then some of the facilities that we're using are at no cost. We are looking at the details as to whether we would offer food, a lunch, or maybe granola bars they're going in, but something like that. If that's the case, then we would look for community partners and budgeting that way. And then with the speaker, that is taken care of through the SCRA grant if that were awarded for this year, and the books as well as part of the grant. The timeline, and I'm not going to read through the whole timeline, but just to give you an overview of the planning committee and the targets that we have for each of these months to ensure a very successful week that we have for juniors in March, all the way from creating the test prep plans to registering for assessments, making sure that the venues and technology are up and running, and that everything is ready to go in January, looking at the final schedule, prepping for assessments, making sure we have all the adult supervision, accommodations for students who need accommodations for any and all of the assessments are built into all of this too. And that gives you an overview of the macro look of where we started with Project Next and those mile markers, and then really keying in on the Success Week and the capstone assessment for all juniors. And certainly if you have any questions, please let us know.
Director Barnes, did you have a question?
No, go ahead.
Well, first, I think that this is really imaginative, and I like the whole idea of trying to meet all of our students where they are on their vocational path. I've got a couple of quick questions, though. One is, and I think that it's there, but I'm just hopeful it will be a little more present. How do we make this week about more than just testing? I've got 3 who every time there's testing and assessment, anxiety, it becomes about testing, and I love the emphasis on success, but I hope it's also about future rather than just assessment and testing. Second thing that I just would offer, is there any way to also hold up symbols from the Davenport schools of these 4 different pathways that these assessments lead towards? A career in military service, as somebody who's gone to college, somebody who's taken a more vocational path. It just seems to me that I love the idea of the outside speaker, but it also seems to me that it would be really great if we could hold up some symbols of the Davenport schools who've found these assessments valuable to their future career path, and also reinforce how valuable their time in the Davenport schools were. So,
I love that idea. I could really see building that into the family event that night prior to the speaker, but showcasing success of our own system going in those 4 lanes.
Director Kleindro?
You said that 400 businesses use work keys. Are there businesses locally that focus on that, and what businesses would they be?
So we had a great conversation about the work keys, and it's not as prevalent in this area. Many of the 400, and I think there is a list that we definitely can get a hold of where those 400 are in the state of Iowa. But do we start to build the capacity of our businesses around work keys so then the need is there? Or do we start having our students take the assessment, they have this so that they can build it in their resumes, and then start that flourishing the work keys in this area, because it's not as prevalent in the Quad City area as we'd like it to be. But it's a great opportunity for us to build that capacity. Yes.
I just wanted to say something to that
Oh,
really quick. Sorry. I was just going to say that one of the reasons why we're emphasizing the juniors taking the work keys as well, because we had talked about maybe moving that particular one to the senior year, but we still want it to be the junior year, is because that gives us a year with employers to kind of build that and have the kids go out with their resumes with the work keys on it so that employers can see it for like a whole year before they actually graduate. I just wanted to point that out too.
Director Beck?
Yeah, so I have two questions. One kind of dovetails with Director Barnes' question. I like the idea of a speaker, but I know students typically engage with someone who looks like them or comes from their similar background. So I think, I mean, I don't know what opportunities there are to make sure that we have people doing this type of thing that represent our students in terms of all the types of diversity that we have. I think that's kind of an important thing. But the idea of bringing in people who've seen success, that might be a way to build that in. The second one, and I guess I should say, I would also encourage you to think about seeing how you can bring those into the actual school assemblies, because I'm guessing a lot of, we'll get some community support, but if I know high school students, they're going to find something else to do outside of school if they can. So the other question I had was, you said students can choose which exams to take. And so there's 4 options. And I guess this is 2-part. Is there a chance for them to opt out? Like, are people going to be able to opt out? Because I can see that being a potential issue. And number 2, what kind of prep are they going to have before they take these exams? Because we know with the ACT, there's actually fairly intensive prep usually involved if you want any kind of success. And I'm guessing it's similar with, say, the ASVAB or ALEX and work keys, because you have to at least know what you're going into, right? So how is that going to work?
So opting out is not an option. So we are going with the goal of 100% of the students selecting an assessment or an experience to be able to, that meets their needs. And we do have a Google form that's already available, and we will start pushing that out. I think in our timeline is towards the October. And in October, all students will have that form to fill out and select which one that they want to, so that way we can do the logistics and the planning behind that. And if a student doesn't select one, then we know who we can start having conversations with around around the experience, which one's going to be a good fit for students. So there's that piece of it. And then the second question was around the
Preparation
The
for
prep.
the exams?
And we do have some task teams, and the large team had filled out a Google form towards the end of our last planning session last spring, and they just put down what they would be interested in, and that was one of them, is just what is planning for the prep. What opportunities do we have to give to students and offer students so that they are experiencing those preps?
Okay. And then to follow up, do you anticipate many students taking more than one of these? Because that would complicate prep, I think. I know the idea is sort of to make sure everybody has an opportunity, but I know, there may be students who are undecided and think, oh, maybe I want to make sure that I'm ready for the military if that's what I choose to do. But I also want to know, am I ready for, the college if I want to take the ACT? Or, I mean, I don't know if that's going to be a big issue or not, but would we be able to accommodate students with that?
Yeah, we want to provide the access and the opportunity, and we know that there are other things within the system that we still have to work on aligning, but we don't want to wait till that's perfect, you know what I mean, to provide the opportunity. So that brings us also back to that purpose number 1, to continue to work on aligning our system so that our kids are best prepared to sit for these exams and have successful post high school goals.
I'm sorry, I have one more question. So I teach at a community college on the other side of the river, and students have a placer test for both reading and math before they can enroll in college level courses. And if they don't meet a certain score, what Illinois has moved to is co-requisite courses, but we still have those placement tests, right? So are you offering any kind of reading placement opportunity, or is that ALEX for math the only community college style placement test that's available? And I don't know what's available over on this side of the river either.
So to answer your this side of the river, that's the only one that EICC needs for placement in. That's the only one that EICC or Scott Community College needs for placement.
Director Poston.
First, I'd like to thank you for your efforts on this project. The one question I have is, so we're looking at their career path at the end of their junior year. Is that soon enough, or should they be looking at this in their sophomore year?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that goes back to our conversation about our district career and academic plan, as well as their individual career and academic plan. So the individual career and academic plan, students are looking at their career path starting in 8th grade. And so we have a whole system already kind of built in the background of them doing that career exploration, especially through our CTE programs throughout high school, starting in junior high and then throughout high school.
Director Potts.
It's a wonderful concept. The logistics of it are going to drive you crazy. It's going to drive you nuts. My question would be, a junior has these choices. Am I assuming that they must make one of these choices? They don't have the choice to do.
We did talk about putting in others. So if a student comes to us and says that here's another assessment or here's another experience, we know we have some unique situations. So we're open to those ideas too. And again, the whole purpose and the whole goal is to have students select something that is meaningful to them, that is going to put them in a position to open doors and opportunities after they graduate from Davenport Community School District.
But the expectation, Noah, the expectation, hope,
Can be
is
something.
that they will select one or more of these to get a self-assessment of themselves.
Director Hayes.
I think both directors, Potts and Beck, have kind of hit on it a little bit, but we all know that all of us can be indecisive at times. If I decided at one day I want to take the ACT, and each day I decided I wanted to try something different, is that an option?
So the form will go out in October, so we will ask for that pre-commitment. It's for logistic reasons, they're going to have to stay with that. Could they choose more than one? There's possibilities for that for sure. And if there's, again, unique circumstances that somebody needs to move, we certainly can entertain that. But to go right up, for example, in ACT, we have to upload those and register students starting in January. So there's not a lot of wiggle room when we're looking at assessments at that capacity.
But also to point out, after Steps to Success Suite comes and goes, our counselors are still available to support kids, and many of these tests are accessible on their own. Again, those are some of the hurdles, though, of getting kids connected to that. But nevertheless, we do have committed counselors that will continue to work with students as they develop those plans, and you know, they change sometimes, but we're there to support them through that.
Okay, thank you.
First, thank you for the presentation. A lot of my questions were already answered. That's why it's great going last. I'm kind of along the lines with Director Poston on the fact of, and I understand we kind of start out in 8th grade and figure that out, but then the junior year. But anyone who's a parent knows that your kids change their minds so many different times, and if we're able to get them, maybe it's the sophomore year and that's not working for them, we still have time to get them that junior year as well, to go on to that. Because I keep telling my daughter, you know, she's got 7 more semesters left of school and she needs to figure out what she wants to do, right? But it goes by so quick and you don't think about it till it's graduation day. And I understand we do have the path cut out in 8th grade to start helping that. and whatever supports we can wrap around that. And this is great. And I think I agree with, maybe we have some of the students that we had that graduated that were in some of these. I'm sure you go out to John Deere Davenport Works, you can get a ton of them, and things like that. I think that would be great too, so kids can actually see these are kids that actually came and did this, and they're still here doing this. So this is what you could, achieve and attain. With that, thank you very much for the presentation. Greatly appreciate it. We will move on to board reports. Any board reports? Director Hayes.
Last week, I believe it was, I met with Superintendent Snackloff and Diane Campbell to discuss the data wall, and it's actually almost to fruition, so we'll see it really soon. Also, last Monday, I went to the district-wide Showing Up Together, and that was awesome, absolutely awesome. Those that didn't go really missed some information, and just the way the information was presented, it was really lighthearted, but the message hit really hard, and I would really, love to see more individuals in the district to implement some of those things that he said. Like, one hard thing that I took was inspire or retire, and it's, wow, if you don't inspire kids, it's time for you to go. That's kind of hard, but it's truly facts. And another thing he said, he discussed he asked who had perfect kids, and, nobody has perfect kids, and just the thought that your kids aren't perfect, so don't expect anyone else's children to be perfect either, to tolerate kids and kind of work with them. And, once you build that relationship with them, that you can turn things around.
Thank you. Any other board reports? Director Poston?
Just to echo what Director Hayes said, as far as the program at the River Center, it kind of impresses you when you see the entire school district in one room, all the staff members. And it was a great program, but I'd also like to commend Superintendent Snakeloth for his message. I think it was as important as the message from our guest speaker.
Thank you. Director Kleindrew?
I also attended Showing Up Together, and Director Poston's right, to see all of our employees there was very cool. We used to do it many, 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 many years ago, so it was neat to have everybody there. Both speakers, TJ and Dr. Brown, were inspiring, and it was a very positive message and a great way to start the school year. And I heard a lot of positive comments too.
Thank you. Director Potts?
I too was there. And there were so many people there that I didn't know you were there or you were there. I saw Kent from the back. It was shiny. It was a really good presentation. It was just a great event. I got to see people that I haven't seen in years, and that was part of the whole beginning of it. So it was very, very nice, very good.
Thank you. Director Beck?
That happened to be my first morning of classes, so I was unable to go. Is there a link that's available to see it, or is it? I didn't think so. Okay. I'll just have to get the rundown from everybody. I just wanted to say that I was really impressed with, my official board report was really impressed with how the schools have been welcoming in the students for the year. I know in my experience, it was fantastic my son started high school, and we had multiple opportunities to go through the building, meet teachers beforehand, figure out schedules, all those kinds of things. And I've heard a lot of good things about sort of the first days in all of our buildings. So congratulations to everyone on getting off to a good start.
Um, I was at the all hands meeting as well, so I'll start with that first. It was a great event. I really love the fact that he comes in and you don't even realize he is the guest speaker, and then he actually gets the audience involved. Don't get up and go to the bathroom in the middle of his thing because you will get called out. Uh, and then to talk about the backpacks and to unpack your backpack and things like that, I think that really resonated. You could see it looking out at all the staff and things like that was a great thing. Um, I was able to attend Unpack Your Backpack at Fillmore because I got two kiddos there. I thought it was awesome for them to have the things up in the field right there, welcoming all the kids back, and they could take photos. They had all of the staff come out before they let us come into the building. They all took a big photo. Then they had another sign up for the first day of school, so that was awesome. And then all the kids, would come. And one of the biggest things my wife was telling me is every morning when you drop your kids off at Fillmore, there's a couple folks there, and there's one of the security guards there. And all of the kids run over and have to say hi, and I cannot remember his name. And she's like, man, they really like him. And I said, well, that's what it's all about. When we have staff members that make that connection with those kiddos, it resonates so much more, and the kids want to be there. So it's great to see that stuff in action. I love seeing all the first day of school pictures on social media and everything. I want to give a shout out to Davenport PD for catching all the folks that were speeding in the school zones. And you're welcome for that, because that's my fault, because I preached that at City Hall and everything, because those are our kiddos, and drive 25. That's the speed limit. You got to be careful, because a lot of these kids in elementaries don't realize it, and they will walk out in front of you and stuff like that. So huge thank you to Davenport PD. I know the superintendent was out hitting buildings and doing some live videos and stuff like that, and I don't think people realize that there's that change when school goes back in session, and that is from 7 to 5, not just when kids are there and stuff. And I preach this all the time, so. And that hit all of my things. Does anyone have any other board reports? I will turn it over to Brenda.
All right, I'm a bit of a broken record. Just a reminder, school board elections will be held in conjunction with the city elections on Tuesday, November 7th. The terms of 5 of our board presidents expire in November, 4 4-year terms and 1 2-year term. Those will be designated on the application forms and on the election forms. So do be careful of that if you're a candidate. If you're interested in running for the school board, you still have plenty of time. You can pick up a packet from me. You are also welcome to look at the IASB, Secretary of State websites. They have great information. Today is the first day that I can receive packets. So we have about 3 weeks now where hopefully we'll have a good rate of return for our school board packets. Do please give me a call. I've been in and out of the office a little bit, and in order to accommodate you and not waste time, please let me know you're coming, and I'll make sure I'm here. And that's it.
Thank you, Brenda. Any other board reports? All right, seeing none, we will move on to open forum. Open forum is a time for members of the community to give input at a board meeting regarding school district issues or concerns. Individuals who want to speak, please fill out an open forum request and give it to the board secretary prior to open forum. The form is available in hard copy for in-person attendees or on the school board page of the district's website for those who want to participate virtually. Virtual participants must email their request to Brenda T. at tbrin@davenportschools.org by 3 p.m. on the day of the board meeting. The board will not act on any issue presented during open forum if it was not published as an agenda item. Iowa Open Meetings Law prohibits action on any issue that is not on the agenda. The president may set the amount of time allowed for individuals to speak. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against individual employees of the district or community. Remarks that reflect negatively on the character or motives of any person will be called out of order. You will be asked to state your name and home address prior to making remarks. We have 4 open forum requests tonight, and we usually do it to 2 minutes, so I will call out the names and just make sure when you come up to the podium, you hit the button on the microphone and it should give a green light like I have. And then up first, we have Abby Branch, and then we'll have Robert Branch. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Robert Branch. We live at 940 North Pine Street in Davenport. My wife Abby and son William appreciate the opportunity to speak this evening. William attends Walcott Elementary, and I would like to start off by thanking the staff and administration at Walcott. They make extraordinary efforts to provide William with the best education possible. We're grateful to them as well as the nursing staff members of Unity Point who are charged with nursing care during his school day. William has profound medical issues that require 24-hour skilled nursing care. He is nonverbal, immobile, and fed by G-tube. But make no mistake though, he is as bright, attentive, and riddled with potential as any 9-year-old could be. His progress in school has been erratic due to inconsistent attendance. For him to attend school, there must be skilled nursing available to monitor and carry out his constant medical needs. Those needs include mitigation of epileptic seizures, respiratory therapies, critical positioning, nutrition, and administration of his multiple medications. Most of the time, the system in place works. The problem lies when a nurse is not available to accompany him due to short notice issues from which a nurse must call off their shift, or a nurse is not available due to an illness that lasts multiple days. Williams' nurses are human, they have children, and they work with children. Sometimes they get sick or face personal issues, as we all do. The work ethic of Williams' nurses is absolutely not in question. During school year 22-23, William missed 47 days of school. 21 days were due to his necessary medical appointments or his own sicknesses. 26 days were missed because there was no nurse available to take him to school. Currently, the minutes at school he has missed due to a lack of nursing availability is instituted into compensatory education, executed over the summer. This isolates William into a classroom unto himself with a teacher, nurse, and paraprofessional devoid of exposure to his peers. The current situation is not consistent with his IEP and consequently a free and appropriate education. This issue has been ongoing for the past 5 years and needs administrative attention from the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Were you coming up to speak too? Or? Okay. Okay. I didn't want to not give you your spot. Up next, I got Joe Winsma. I hope I got that right. Huh? Winsma. And Angela Hughes will be after that.
You were close. Joe Weinsma. My name is Joe Weinsma. I am an employee of Davenport Schools. I live in Davenport at 2342 East 28th Street. I'm speaking today to let the board and district leadership know that the climate of our schools is changing. And I'm not talking about starting school during a 100+ degree heat wave last week. I'm talking about a climate of anxiety and uncertainty. We currently, excuse me, my voice wavers when I talk about things I care about. We currently have a large population of students in our schools who are anxious, confused, scared, and unsettled due to certain portions of the Parental Rights in Education Act passed earlier this year. Anxious and unsettled are not the emotional states in which we hope our students begin a new school year. The students who are impacted most are students who identify as transgender, non-binary, gender fluid, or are otherwise questioning or exploring gender identities. In fact, our entire LGBTQ+ community, students, families, and allies, has certainly already been impacted. If we hope the changes might be subtle or slow in coming, I do not think this is the case. The change in the atmosphere has been felt already. For example, New laws contain mandates that state that when any of these students request to be called by a name or pronoun with which they are most comfortable, staff may be required to report that to a building administrator, who in turn may be required to report that to the student's parent or guardian. I want you to think for a second about the first day of any class, when the teacher introduces themselves and meets their students, finding out what those students prefer to be called. Think of the students who are now immediately anxious about this commonplace occurrence that is usually intended to make everyone more comfortable, not uncomfortable. Think of the student who is not even aware of the new legislation because nobody told them about it or gave them any guidance on it whatsoever. That student may have said they prefer to be called by a name other than what the teacher has listed and would also like to be called by different pronouns. Maybe that student has been pulled aside already by a teacher at the end of class and told that an administrator will be calling them down later in the day to talk to them. Welcome back to school. So yes, these changes have already affected the school climate. I wanted to bring awareness to that today. But much more importantly than awareness, I'm here to ask the board and the district administration to do something about that. We as a school district have not, in this time, I don't feel, made it clear to these students that we will support them, that we will respect their rights, that we value them for who they are and what they bring to our schools. Will we leave our students and families on their own to wonder what this all means and whether or not their status has somehow changed in our schools? I'm an advisor for our school's Mentors in Violence Prevention program. Our students discuss the power of bystander intervention to reduce violence, bullying, and harassment in our schools in that program. We emphasize how saying and doing nothing, how saying and doing nothing when we witness someone being hurt or made to feel bad is in fact a response that sends a message. In the same way, when we do not clearly say or do something for the people most affected by these new laws, we are sending a message. When we don't make any proactive statements or take steps showing how Davenport schools will continue to include, value, and protect our LGBTQ+ student population, we are complicit in keeping them feeling uncertain, worried, confused, and disenfranchised. As of now, collectively, I feel we have not sent the supportive, encouraging, or uplifting message that is necessary. I hope Davenport schools will do that soon. Our students will know we stand behind them only when we tell them and show them clearly and assertively that we stand behind them. We need Davenport school statements out there and plans that are put out to our families, our students, our staff, and through media outlets. At the very least, we need to make sure we explain to students and their families what their rights are and how we will continue to protect those rights. I'd like to finish with a statement from another much longer established piece of Iowa law. I find this one is straightforward and very helpful. It is an unfair or discriminatory practice for any educational institution to discriminate on the basis of race, creed, color, sex, sexual orientation, gender, identity, national origin, religion, or disability in any program or activity. That one is from the Iowa Civil Rights Act. Thank you for your opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you. Angela Hughes, you are up.
Hi, my name is Angela Hughes. I live at 2226 West 55th Street in Davenport. I had a couple kids who graduated from the Davenport school system, and my youngest son didn't get that chance due to some things that happened. But when he was here and he was going through everything that he was going through, there was a lady who worked for the school system. I don't see her here, but she advocated for us so hard. And like you said earlier, representation is everything. And this lady, Deborah Stevenson, she went to bat for us. but I just learned that her position is no longer, or maybe she retired. And I just want to know if somebody else was going to take that position because it's invaluable. We have nobody representing us. Representation is everything. And what she did for me, I'll never forget. What she did for my son, I'll never forget. When everybody turned their back on us, she stood strong with us, and she did it in the light. She didn't hide behind her title and be afraid to lose her job like other people did. She just went to bat for us. Now my son is in his second year of college, and when I send people here, I usually give her name, but I just recently learned that she's no longer here. So I just want to know if her position was going to be filled, and if so, are we going to have somebody that's going to go to bat for us like she did? Thank you for letting me talk.
Thank you very much. The board greatly appreciates the input from the community, and we appreciate you all participating in the open forum. We will move on to the consent agenda. May I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board accept the consent agenda as written.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. Superintendent report. Committee reports. Data Wall Ad Hoc Committee. You kind of already did it, but
Yes, I sort of did it, but if Superintendent or Diane had anything more to add, feel free. Nothing more to add.
good job. Save that stuff for committee reports next time, please. Finance Committee.
We met last Thursday. We had Heather Harlan, budget specialist for all the federal programs, and went through all the federal programs. You should have got this on the Friday board report, but she went through each one of them: Title 1A, Title 1D, Title 2A, Title 3A, Title 4A, McKinney, Vento, Carl Perkins, and then also did a update on ESSER. We have $32 million that have to be spent by June 30th. But I'd like to thank Heather for presenting to us, and it was very informative.
Thank you. Elziak.
We have not met yet, but our first meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, September 12th, and the agenda will be published on September 5th.
Okay, thank you. Long Range Facilities Planning.
We have not met since my report on our last meeting.
Thank you. Policy Committee.
We have not met since the last time I discussed it.
Thank you. And there's nothing new to report on legislative advocacy. All right, that's all the committee reports. We'll move on to items requiring action. May I have a motion on subject 9.01, the West High Abatement Project?
Mr. President,
Director Beck.
I move the board award the West High School Abatement ESSER project to the lowest responsible responsive bidder, Echo Midwest, in the amount of $181,200.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. May I have a motion on subject 9.02, Harrison Classroom Furniture?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board approve the purchase of the Harrison classroom and building furniture through Workspace for $534,339.59.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. May I have a motion on subject 9.03, Jefferson Teacher and Media Center Furniture?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board approve the purchase of Jefferson Elementary teacher desks, chairs, and media center furniture through Workspace for $176,071.13.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. May I have a motion on subject 9.04, MOU with Goodwill Industries for custodial and food service training and hiring?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board approve the memorandum of understanding between Davenport Community School District and Goodwill of the Heartland as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. All right. We'll move on to discussion items. First subject for discussion is 10.01, the communications plan. And what I did, I asked Shane Williams to come in and kind of facilitate this so we could get and I'll let him lay it out. I'll turn it over to you, Shane. Thank you.
Brenda's going to pull up some slides there just to keep us grounded and so we can have some facilitated dialogue tonight. And I'll kind of walk you through the steps that we're going to process. So Brenda, if you wouldn't mind clicking on slideshow there, and I can take it from there, I think. Okay, sure. All right. So this is the third time that this item has been brought before the board for discussion. So really tonight is about, let me move to the next slide, is about making a decision so that we can provide some guidance to the agenda planning committee. So this is the intended outcome for tonight. So tonight is the point where we've certainly had a lot of time to unpack our respective opinions and to share those and to put those out on the table. And the next step is we need to provide some concrete guidance for the agenda planning committee regarding a recommendation about the path forward. So, and that is an internal or an external communications solution. I know Director Postian at the last meeting, I went back and watched that just to make sure I was abreast of any current developments, even throughout there. Maybe there's some type of hybrid or combination strategy. So that's certainly a viable option too. But at the end of it, it's kind of like we've discussed it, and at some point we just have to make a decision and move forward. And that's a board prerogative to do that. So when we leave here tonight, we want to make sure that we have that concrete guidance for the board. That way, at the next board meeting, a decision can be made, and President Gosa can provide that clarity to the board and to the community. So that's where we're going to be tonight. I'm going to ask you to engage in some final thought, though, as we really laser in on what those next steps might be. So as I listened to the last board meeting on August 14th, I think there were really two themes that surfaced in the context of that. So these are what I would call the summary of priorities from board members. And I've tried to synthesize what we had talked about at the preceding meeting and then the August 14th meeting and put those into something that was relatively coherent to help guide the board. So I heard a lot of board discussion about communicating and connecting with current stakeholders, celebrating what kids are doing, all the amazing things, all the course offerings, all those aspects that truly make the educational experience in Davenport unique that a lot of stakeholders don't even know exist. A lot about the Creative Arts Academy came up. And I think it's beyond that idea of awareness. It's not just awareness, it's about having an empowered, engaged, and connected school community. So be thinking about that and ground yourselves in that. What is it going to take for us to ensure that all of our current stakeholders, those folks who have kids currently in our system to ensure that they're all empowered, engaged, and connected as a school community. That takes a really robust communication strategy and plan that's executed well. The second priority that again, I think was a salient one that surfaced 2 weeks ago when the board met was, what about the people who are not currently stakeholders in this community? What can we do to communicate the opportunities and successes that the district offers? How can we promote the district? And I would say that that's even a more macroscopic piece, because the first one is really, what are we doing for our current stakeholders to ensure that our families are empowered, engaged, and connected? But what about the broader community of all potential stakeholders that could, Director Potts used the idea of this family moving from Cleveland. Why would they select Davenport? What is it that stands out in Davenport that provides a unique opportunity for kids in this system that sets them onto a path for lifelong success? So what does it look like if we truly communicate the opportunities and successes the district offers? How can we be better at promoting the district? So please ground yourself in those two priorities. I tried to, again, capture, I think, the essence of what the dialogue was a couple of weeks ago, and then in the preceding time when I was able to facilitate that discussion. So moving forward, first discussion, I'm going to ask you to engage in some silent reflection time. We talked at the preceding meeting where I was able to facilitate. We had a lot of ideas up on chart paper. I synthesized those, sent those out. Board members all had a chance to review those before the last discussion. These were must-haves. What I would say is these are non-negotiables. The board is saying, we're going to take a stand. Whatever communication mechanism we have, internal or external, these are non-negotiables. These have to be a part of our path forward. So good news, consistent, clear. We want to lead in communications. We don't want to be reactive. We want to be proactive. We've moved from a situation a couple of years ago where we really were in a place that was not positive, a lot of negative press. And the current communication strategy really put us on a different path. They orchestrated some communication strategies, did some web development, social media, all those different pieces. We're in a different place now. So a different place means different current reality, different path forward. So we want to be a leader in communications, professional, transparency, informative. We want it to be uplifting and diverse. What do our stakeholders want and need, and how do we make that positive and affirming? We also have a responsibility to keep the community informed, widespread, targeted. So we're going to have both widespread communications. What do all people need? And what is the targeted communication that maybe I need as a parent of a kindergartner compared to a person who's maybe a junior, senior looking at post-secondary opportunities? Concise, so not a lot. We don't want parents having to weed through a lot of minutia. How can we do that concisely? Accurate, cascaded, so lots of steps in that process, keeping the entire school community on the same page. And then really, I think one of the most important and impactful statements that continued to surface both in the context of the first meeting as well as the second one is we need to highlight the students. The students in Davenport Community School District are doing amazing things, and so we need to highlight what those successes are. So as you think about those two grounding priorities from August 14th, and when you think about these non-negotiables or these must-haves, I want you to just take a few seconds and jot down some ideas and your thoughts. And everybody's going to have to go on the record tonight as saying this. I suppose you can abstain, but I would really encourage you as board members to share your thoughts. And the question is, who is best positioned to move the board must-haves forward? So is that an internal? Is it an external? I'd even throw that out there for Director Postian's idea, or is it some combination of a strategy? So please write down some thoughts right now, and then I'm going to ask with permission from Director Gosa to go around to each board member and just have you share that. Who do you think is best positioned to make those non-negotiables come to life for this school community, our current stakeholders, as well as to promote the district to external stakeholders and potential families to join the school community? So take a few seconds, jot down some ideas about who you think is best positioned to move the district forward. So President Gosa, I'm fine if you want to take the lead on asking board members. I'm fine if you'd like me to take the lead on that. Either way, we just need to get the ideas out on the table and hear people voice their opinions.
I can do it, or you can do it, however you want to do it.
Okay, I don't mind doing it. Yeah, I'd like you to, because I'd like you to be a participant and not feel like you have to facilitate.
Perfect.
Is there a volunteer who would like to go first to answer the question, who do you believe is best positioned to move the board must-haves forward? Go ahead, Director Hayes.
After thinking about it, I would think probably internal. Reason being is the information is real time. Secondly, I remember as a child playing telephone. By the time you get to the end of the line, the entire message has been kind of misconstrued, and I feel that on the spot accuracy may work rather than, passing it on to 2 or 3 people to get it down to where it should be.
Thank you. Appreciate the additional context too. Is there a board member to volunteer next? Director Poston?
Well, I would be in favor of external source. I think there's more resources there. But again, like I mentioned at our workshop, I feel that we needed somebody designated within the district to work with that external source. And I think in the past, maybe we have not, as a board or as a district, we have not communicated well enough to that source, and that I think coordinating with a person from the district would help that.
Thank you. Director Barnes?
I want to agree with Director Poston and Director Hayes. I do think that there needs to be better coordination. I would favor, because the superintendent's job is a big job, and he cannot be the only spokesperson for the district. We need an internal person who is supplemented with external expertise.
Thank you. Director Potts?
I think the track record we've had with our current public relations has been very beneficial to us. It's rebranded the district. I don't think we've had any issues that haven't been easily resolved. I think internal, you have turnover, you got to hire people. External agencies like that have vast amounts of resources that internally we will not have, we can't afford to have, and that includes things to make videos and all the whole gamut of advertising and promotion. I always, in my head, I have a differentiation between public relations and promotion. We need to do both. And I just think internally, you've got turnover. We talk about, they'll be familiar with it. They're not going to be familiar with the district. If we decide to go external, we're not going to have anybody for 2 or 3 months. And they're going to be brand new. So they're not going to know the district. If we hire somebody internal, we're not going to have anybody that has the training, the skills, and the background that we're looking for. I just think external, you can set out your goals very clear. They have a single purpose. They're not sitting in an office down here where when there's a shortage someplace else, or somebody needs to cover the reception desk, or somebody needs or somebody else, they're going to get pulled off, because that has been the track record in the past. I do agree, though, we should have a designated funnel person. That building has this, you funnel it to somebody who then gets it to our PR folks.
Thank you. Director Beck?
So I agree that we have made a lot of positive changes with our current, I guess we would say PR firm. And based on the comparisons that we were sent, we save some amount of money by using this firm as opposed to having a staff internally. We have, essentially multiple people at our disposal for the salary of one person, right? Which is great. But I think right now, my biggest issue is that 2 years in, the website still hasn't been fixed. And I've been bringing this to somebody's attention for 2 years, and it still hasn't been fixed. And to me, that is a big problem. Now, do we hire somebody internally who can manage the website and then continue to use an outside source for our PR? Maybe. What I think, I like the idea that Director Poston and others have had, having our externally sourced PR arm and promotion arm, I guess, but with an internal person whose job it is to liaise with them. Maybe that person also manages the website. But we need somebody internally who is dedicated to being our supplemental voice to the superintendent, right? Because we know that the superintendent is really the ultimate voice of the district and the board president is the voice of the board. But I don't think, I think some combination thereof may be the best option. Because right now, we've got some great stuff, but we've also got some stuff that's not great. So,
Director Klein-Jerome.
I do believe we need somebody internally and not somebody who's going to sit in an office. They need to be out in the buildings. They need to see what's happening. I don't envision hiring somebody internally that's just going to sit in an office and wait for somebody to call them. So I guess I'm seeing this internal position differently because TJ can't do it all. He can't, be the one to funnel it all. And whoever we hire needs to get out there, find out what's going on, keep the community informed. So I see it as, and if we needed to make videos, perhaps we could partner with St. Ambrose, and maybe they have a department that could do our video portion of it. But also, like you said, somebody needs to fix that website. So I see it more as an internal thing that, they would know what our problems are, where we need to get the information out.
So just real quick to clarify yours, just because I want to make sure that President Gosa and Superintendent Schneckloff have some guidance here. You're not advocating for the hybrid. You're saying solely an internal.
Well, I mean, possibly partnering with, say, St. Ambrose, which I understand in Dubuque, they partner with college up there.
Okay.
To do the video. So I guess it is.
I just wanted to contrast it with maybe where Director Beck and Director Potts and
I'm
others,
looking
and
at
Director
the
Boggs.
external part a little differently.
Okay.
Partnering with the college.
Go ahead, Director Poston.
Yeah, my thought is if we had the combination external internal, my thought is that internal person is just out in the buildings every day, beating the bushes, looking for stories and looking for what's positive in a district. The other thing, if we do team up with an outside source, I would hope that we could make some sort of arrangement that we could have some sort of internship where students from our Career Arts Academy could participate and help with making some of these videos. Just from an internship standpoint, I think it'd be a great opportunity for those kids and a great, learning experience.
Director Beck, I saw a lot of positive body language to that idea too, that Director Poston just voiced it. Did you want to add a follow-up?
Yeah, so the way I see an internal person as well, not somebody sitting at a desk, but not somebody, I mean, they're not necessarily just a photographer, they're not just a writer, somebody who is going to write a press release when something good happens and can funnel that to our source that can spread the word if we have an external PR firm, right? Because one person can't always get all the information out. But I agree, somebody who's out in the district collecting information that can proactively make information happen. But my number one concern right now, because I think we're doing a much better job than we used to be on getting the good information out, is getting a website that is user-friendly and updated regularly. Even today, there's an end of the year school message on the front page, and that's from last year.
President Gosa.
First, thank you very much for facilitating this because it makes it easier to participate. I've thought about this a ton, trying to figure out, facilitating the last one and things like that. And I've listened to kind of what everyone has said. And Director Potts has really hammered on turnover. We've had a ton of turnover with external candidates as well, internal also. And I can see the point in my mind. If it was an internal person, that this is what they're doing, they're not getting subbed out, farmed out to do something else. This is their job. It needs to be a job description created, posted, and that would be the person that does that. Now, whether it's a hybrid thing and partnering with some of that stuff, but I do think that and everyone's kind of said that it needs to be someone in our building that knows our stuff. Now, I will own this, that internal candidates didn't work out before because this district had a really bad habit of putting people in positions that they should never have been in. I mean, we've made a lot of changes. We have a cabinet and stuff now, and that seems to be working better than the system we had before. Sometimes change is good. It shakes things up, and at the same time, it also, people get complacent in things, right? So I think I would imagine no matter what we do, if we're going to do an internal person, it's going to have to be we would have to do something in the interim, a hybrid model or something like that. I mean, everyone has their wheelhouses, that they're good in and things like that. But for me, for this and the things that as the board we've laid out, I would envision the internal person having a strategic plan. All right, this is what they want. This is how I'm going to do it. Because if you don't have a plan in place, nothing comes out, right? And you got to make your plan and work your plan. And we have been so reactive in this district for so long, it's like second nature that we need to be a lot more proactive. We have amazing staff, we have amazing students, and we need to showcase that stuff so that it's not just every time I'm at the grocery store promoting it, we have, other people doing it too, and talking points. I can't tell you how much inaccurate information is out there, and I'm sure everybody else runs into that stuff too. But from having the discussions and kind of listening to what everyone said, I think turnover is a huge thing. If it was an internal person, it would have to have a commitment to that, It would also have to be for us to provide that leadership to the admin that department's sole responsibility, and not to be, you got to go answer phones this day and things like that. Because once you start taking away from that, and I'm glad that we have the must-haves and you were able to focus in on that, because that's a lot of the stuff that we've been promoting for a long time. The board was never really involved with this part of it before, and it's nice that we are now and can give that input, because at the end of the day, we have to give the direction to the superintendent and give them that charge to pass along to everyone else. So irregardless how, I would assume we would have to do a hybrid at some point, because I'm assuming we would have a contract coming up here soon that we would have to do something with there. So I don't know the exact timelines on that. Or
Director Beck.
I guess, so I'd be curious to know what the difference is between, say, Iowa City that is spending, I don't know, $300,000 on 3 people who do this kind of thing. What are those positions? Is one like a PR specialist? Is one a web design specialist? And one person, go out and get the information? Because if that's what it takes, that is a perfectly reasonable solution to me. People that we hire who have the correct professional licensure, right, or experience. And as Director Gosa or President Gosa mentioned in the past, we had a habit of pulling people from other roles to do jobs that they weren't qualified for. Mm-hmm. So this would have to be people who, you hire a web person, you hire a person in PR, and that is their job, and that's all they do, and and that would be internal. So I guess I'm curious as to how those are set up.
That's exactly how they're all set up. There's usually a director, and then a specialist, and some form of an administrative assistant. Administrative assistant would be in charge of setting up meetings, posting things to the website, and so it's very common that every single one of those districts do it that way. And some people have different strengths. So some of the PR community relations, the PR person is more of a community relations person, so they have more community-based meetings and then deal with public relations on the backside. And other ones are strictly PR, public relations, both reactive and proactive. And so it's just kind of what I noticed is that people are gelling those to the strengths of the human beings that they have. I just sent something to the school board, Bruce, that had Cedar Rapids on there. They have 4 people in there. That was information that was requested. So each one of those districts does something very similarly, and in each district has a different pay scale, so you can tell, but it's essentially an administrator, somebody that specializes in something, whether it be content, web design, something like that, and then an administrative assistant that keeps everybody in line.
So based on, this, as I said before, it seems like we can get, 3 people who work for the district only for not that much more than we're paying now. But I'm hesitant to say that has to be the way we go, because I'm not an expert in public relations and, managing communications. So I think maybe knowing exactly what we want and what our issue is and what are the, what are the strengths. I mean, we've been getting great results in most of these areas that we want. There's just a few things that I personally am not happy with. And so I can't just say what the best solution is offhand, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think in one thing that we really wrestled with is there's upsides and downsides to both. And I think this is one of those decisions where it's not a clear-cut slam dunk on either side. The other thing I would do is commend the board for clearly you understand what an important decision this is. The fact that we've spent the better part of, 3 agendas and lots of time and cognitive energy unpacking this 6 ways to Sunday, I think at least at a minimum sends a clear message to your community that you care very deeply about the school district and the image that is portrayed and communicated. So it's a difficult decision. I know that boards typically don't like to have dissent or split votes, but this is one of those where the agenda planning committee might just have to make a recommendation based on all the input that's been provided tonight in the 2 preceding meetings, and then just move forward with purpose and with consensus, with everybody on the same page, and do what's right for the community. President Gosa, is there anything else I can ask to follow up or to provide the guidance that you think is necessary for next steps to get? There's still a lot of gray, I would say, but I'm happy to try to surface more clarity if you'd like me to continue. Oh, I'm sorry, Director Barnes.
I just think as the board considers this and the committee on the agenda considers this, it is very unlikely, no matter what we choose, that it is an either or, that everything will continue externally or we will bring everything in-house. A shop of 3 people will not have the full expertise to carry out our communications agenda. It's impossible given competencies and what we would potentially spend. So there's going to be additional investment even if we were to hire a communications team of 3 people. There will still need to be some external work that is done, and even a shop like mine that has 12 people for an institution of 2,500 students, we still require some external investment. But I will say, to echo your comments, 3 meetings, we've talked about communication and the importance of the communication. And I look at our cabinet, which is full of extremely competent people. And each one of those positions has been created because the school district has said, what they do is critically important to the success of this district. I think we need to think about something similar with communication, given the fact that communication and promotion of the school district intersects with every single member of the cabinet and every single one of our employees.
One thing I was going to, or I wanted clarification, you might be able to answer this. So when I was kind of thinking this, and I think when you gave one of your first ones about, you said 3 people. So in my mind, I was thinking, okay, if you hired 3 people, but we already have some people in the district, and I'm just going to throw John Border's name out because he does some of that stuff. So in my mind, I was picturing folks like him and others that do that would be kind of inundated into this too, which would free up some from whoever they report to now. Is kind of, I was thinking it would be 3 created, but then utilize some folks that are already there. Is that kind of, and how many folks would that include, I guess?
That is accurate, and that there's a potential of 2 to maybe 3 people that could be folded into the communications and community relations department to expand that area. When we dissolved this department, we had to find homes for those people that were inside of that department. So there's a potential of maybe 2, maybe 3 people, and plus some other alignment of duties. There are community relations jobs that are actually falling on the plates of people that are not community relations people. So to get those jobs back into a department would be extremely beneficial, or just back into the lane of expertise of somebody that's used to dealing with these types of things. For example, our website. So yes.
Okay. I wrote that down as a note. Website number 1. I've heard that a lot.
I have a challenge.
Okay, thank you for. It's kind of what I was seeing in my mind. I just wanted to make sure that was kind of. I thought that was kind of how you explained it, so it could essentially be a department of like 5 to 6. Yeah. Okay. And what got me thinking on that is when the young lady talked during open forum about how someone grabbed onto their kiddo and got him, and that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about too. That leads into that stuff. I just wanted clarification on that. I'll turn it back over to you, Shane.
Well, I don't know if Superintendent or President, if you need any more guidance, people have voiced their opinions. This, I guess, would be the last chance for anyone to advocate what you think is how we mobilize and move forward with purpose and with a sense of consensus and cohesion with respect to the board must-haves. This, I guess, would be your last chance to provide guidance for the agenda setting committee.
Looking over there at the 8 people on the cabinet level, 2 are internal that came from Davenport schools. 6 of you had no connection to Davenport. So I think we shouldn't be afraid to bring somebody from the outside in, because we have a very successful table of people over there, and 6 of them came from other places. And it has worked out very well for us. So we need to not be afraid that bringing somebody else into the district, well, they aren't going to know the district. Well, these people all got up to speed quite quickly, so just my thought.
All right, so the plan is at the next meeting, there will be board action taken on what the plan is going to be. So I'm hopeful that you have enough guidance to make that decision and to make that recommendation. And I'll just close with the 2, what I would call broad objectives that I think surfaced in the context of the board's last discussion on the 14th. It's really key to focus on the current stakeholders and also the external folks as well. I think you can do both simultaneously. So thank you for the opportunity to help you all provide a little bit of guidance on your next steps. And President Gosa, with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much again, Shane. Appreciate it. Does anyone have any final, Director Beck?
Just to follow up on what Director Klein Jerome said, I think the key is not whether people we hire are internal or external to the district. It's do they have the expertise we need? Because you need somebody who knows what they're doing. And whether we dedicate a job within the district to that expertise, fine. If it's better to hire an external source or group with those levels of expertise, that may be the best option, or maybe a combination. The key is that we need to have people dedicated who are specialized in different aspects of this process.
Superintendent.
Well, I want to thank the board for the wonderful direction conversations that have occurred, but I think this is an excellent example of Shane's leadership. Shane's been doing things like this for Davenport schools for many years. Shane, thank you so much for stepping up and really helping us land this plane, setting the direction. I think this is a great example of what our AEAs do for us. And you really step up and assist us in times when we need it most in difficult conversations. So really appreciate what you do, Shane, and your leadership in this area. So thank you.
You know what? I'll even attend the next AEA board meeting and give them a shout out. I can do that for you, Shane. I appreciate you. All right, before we move on to the next discussion item, we're going to take a 5-minute break. And we will be back. All right, we're back. We will move on to the next subject for discussion, 10.02, discussion of Bray Architects for high school turf fields. I will turn it over to Superintendent.
John, thanks for being with us today. This is a very exciting project. This is a resource that our high school teams have needed for a long time. So, John, thanks for being here tonight.
Actually, I can speak to this
Josh
first.
Romansky.
Yes.
And John Flynn. And anybody else that wants to speak.
So this is the beginning of some of the work in our phase 1 project we discussed in the past. We've met with Bray a little bit about preliminary budgets and stuff here. So we've had one meeting to talk about what the scope of this work is. And preliminarily, they came up with a budget of around $12 million. Each school field that we're talking about is going to have to be a little bit different. So we can't say they're all exactly the same. It's all based on land, area, use, and they don't all have the same area or use space to be able to work with. So that being said, we'd like to hire Bray to do our design and specifications for this project for the amount of $721,584. We also re-review this once drawings are 25% complete to see they should be a lot more accurate at that point to make sure our budget's within line. Any questions around that?
Director Beck.
Just to clarify, so these are turf fields, one at each high school, so that anyone who needs a turf field can practice? Or how is, I mean, what are we talking
I
about?
could address that, Josh.
Go ahead.
So the initial conversation was practice turf for each high school. It became something a little different. It's a turf field that would be multi-use. It would be sized for competition for soccer play, which gives the district the ability to host multiple games between the 3 different campuses. But during non-soccer time of year or when a soccer game's not in play, those could be used for other sports teams for practice, whether it be football, baseball, softball, basically any outdoor activity.
So I know at like North, they have a soccer field already. So I'm guessing this would go on in that space, right? Probably.
That is correct, except it would grow. It would get a little bit bigger.
Yeah. Okay.
Same at West.
Okay. So what about Central? Is this going to be at Brady, or is it going to replace, like, say, the one field that's at Central?
So at both North, West, and Central, there's a somewhat of a dedicated space for marching band practice and play. So we're not trying to disrupt that. It's a different field location, which unfortunately in the Central campus means it has to be at Brady Street because there's just no other land available.
I just want to clarify. We were not talking about doing the band field at Central, because if you go to a football game, they're solely about the band, and we don't want to mess with that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to imply that we were going to move the marching band anywhere.
Director Poston.
Just for clarification, it says that the percentage fee shall be converted to a stipulated sum fee at completion of the 50% construction document cost estimate. Could you explain that to me?
So that's language that was put in all of the contracts by the district's attorney. So essentially, there's a fee schedule in our master agreement that illustrates what the range of cost of a project, what the percentage basis is. However, in the midst of construction documents where we're getting close to finalizing those, it converts to a fixed fee. So our fee gets locked, it doesn't change anymore. What that does is it gives the district the benefit of, if that price climbs or lowers, that fee adjusts accordingly. With this one, we hope that that price will come down because it's a very early estimate based on
very little design work. So we want to see that cost come down as we proceed through that. Does that
So
make sense?
instead of, if it's not a $12 million project and it's an $11 million project, the architect's fee will come down.
It'll adjust down, correct.
Director Potts.
What's the average life of these fields? What is it? What are they going to be? And then what plans do we have for banking money when it comes time to replace?
You want me to talk to the money? So we'll have to budget maintenance and care of these fields out of our PEPL or our regular maintenance operations accounts. I believe the fields will last, well, I should say on average 10, 15 years, but it really depends a lot on how you use them and how often they're being used. If there are people on them, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, they're going to wear out really fast. If we're on there for designated certain things, it will last a lot longer. But there will be an increase in expense over time for that many fields.
The district does own a piece of equipment that is used to, for sort of rudimentary terms, it fluffs the grass and it replants the granules that are in between the blades. So the district owns a pretty high-end piece of machinery that is necessary for that maintenance. So that is one expense you don't have to face. That would mean that the other turf fields get maintained like the primary field at Brady Street.
And there's a little bit of maintenance we're already doing just by mowing, fertilizing, weeds, stuff like that we take on every year. Yes.
In comparison to
Kind of. The end result is similar.
In comparison to grass fields, when they're planted, the prep and the type of grass and the maintenance dictate, usually it boils down to how many games can be played in a season on that grass. That activity will determine how much abuse it takes and essentially how much rest it needs before you can get to the next activity. So the consideration of turf from a synthetic standpoint is it can rain, it'd be a drainage based system. Once the rain clears, you could go out and practice. You could literally move from one game to another game immediately without that extra wear and tear on the field itself. So the thought is that there would be a cost benefit by allowing that piece of turf to host multiple activities over a broader period of time than the limited exposure that grass provides.
Director Barnes.
Similar to Director Potts, will we select the same product for all three fields to at least have some cost savings by going with the same company and vendor?
So the general thought is that this would be one single project, not three individuals. Okay. You would make the same selection across because the more volume you purchase, you should get a discount incrementally as you buy more. By the same token, if the company that you're hiring has to do a bunch of earth moving and transporting in fill, you get a benefit by rate of bulk acquisition. So we feel that that's better positioned as a single purchase. We'd like to unify as much as we can between the three campuses so that it is like product, like maintenance, and there's some equity in what's received there, even though some of the logistics of how it's provided might change a little bit from campus to campus.
And I have two, I think, finance questions. One is related to whether or not the architect fee is included in the preliminary budget or is in addition to. That's one question. The second, I think it would be helpful for me to understand the policy or practice for reserving for depreciation. This field will become obsolete and will need to be replaced. Unlike I know there's lots of maintenance with a natural grass field, but at the end of 10 or 12 or 15 years, it will be at the end of its useful life. And just would love to know what the policy would be on that. So a finance question for the cabinet.
So the fees are included in the total estimate. That is inclusive of fees and soft costs, so reproduction, permitting. So it's supposed to be an all-in cost basis in that estimate. As far as policy for useful life, the district has had to replace turf previously at the Brady Street Stadium. I believe that that's a second piece of turf there, if I'm not mistaken. In general, the criteria that you use to select the exact piece of turf and the system that goes in, they all have a little bit different life expectancy. And so it's going to have to be a comparative that we present the data to the district and weigh the life cycle implications of initial cost versus that life cycle expectancy. And then secondly, keep in mind that when you do a future turf replacement, it doesn't dictate that you tear up all the material below. So a good portion of the expense right now is you're dealing with 2 feet of ground or more that's below the turf surface. That future replacement should just be the turf material itself.
Director Poston.
So when you talk about access to these fields, are these fields going to be entirely open? Anybody can walk in and use the fields, or is it going to be fenced off and you've got to reserve the fields? How's that going to work?
These will be controlled environments. So new fencing around each field, lighting where we can make sure that it's approved by city ordinance. So they would have exterior lighting for later in the evening games or practices. And then some opportunities for signage as well. So fences and some maybe some ability to just have some school branding with these fields.
So would the idea be that there would be no soccer games played on Brady Street, that they'd be played at these 3 fields?
So the goal is that Brady Street would still serve as kind of a tournament venue, as a competition venue for games, but this provides an outlet that North and West could host games as well. The field that would be turf that's placed at the Brady Street campus would be more practice in nature and not competition, because there is that turf piece already inside the stadium. Does that answer that?
John, you want to?
I would just add that in the initial conversations, there was talk of being able to play home contests for Central or for North and West on those fields. But I also wanted to state that the amount of space that is there is going to provide a lot of opportunities for a lot of just activity that currently we are limited on space. I think about, John talked about the band field at West. There's potential, if there's bad weather or its scheduling allows, the band might be able to practice on the turfed field at any of these facilities as well. So I just think it's really being created as a multi-purpose space that will provide a good opportunity for all of our students and student athletes.
Would this also provide maybe some opportunities for some junior high teams then?
It would be a great opportunity to start building that feeder feel. Absolutely.
Any other questions? I don't really have questions, just some comments. I don't remember how long the other field at Brady Street Stadium lasted, but it lasted a long time. But you got to remember, Ambrose was using it, Assumption was using it, our junior highs were using it, our high schools were using it, and now a lot of the junior highs do the games at like North. They use the field down there. I think they had a West game, one of the feeder games at North too. I would be interested in seeing, because I'll just use North for example, because it's my wheelhouse and I got a little guy playing youth football there now. But you had talked about where the soccer field is. In my mind, that location sucks. I would do it behind the building because it's closer to the locker rooms. Your football team could use it. Your baseball team could use it, and your soccer stuff. I mean, I understand it, but it's way out there, so you're going to make a bunch of football players run from all the way there through the building and all that. And I don't think that that's realistic. And I don't know if that's set in stone on how you guys are doing, or if you even talk to the athletic directors.
Actually, there will be more planning sessions to talk through the ins and
Okay.
outs of location. The committee that's working on this includes principals from each building, athletic activity directors from each building, as well as some select coaches. John is personally involved in this as well. So it's a really good group that is going to function on each other's project to help kind of direct those decisions as we work through it.
And if it snows, you can plow it right off and go.
Sweet.
Director Postron.
So when you talk about, you said that there was enough available space at all these locations. Now, I know at West they've limited the number of parking passes, but that's partly because of the addition going on now, and I don't know how many spaces that took. So now you add this field, which I assume is going to be on the old soccer area back there. So you don't anticipate taking any more parking away?
If we need to increase to get the right field size, we would likely disrupt some parking spaces, but there is also some ability to replant some parking spaces if needed. One of the conditions that causes a little bit of an issue with the current West parking pass situation is the need for space for outside storage and staging of materials during the construction cycle. So that is taking some of the space for the current year. As we get through that West High addition project, that'll free up spaces. The actual construction only impacted, I believe it was less than 15 total parking spots on the campus. We'll consider the total quantity of parking needed on that campus as we lay out the field so that we don't cause too much disruption to the parking situation.
And just one last question for you as the architect, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but at what point we've given Bray a lot of business, and looks like we're going to give more down the road. At what point do we start getting a price break on fees?
That's a fair question. We'll always look at each project, and we do appreciate the opportunity to work with the district on this. And I will say, as it relates to the turf field, the majority of the work will not be done by Bray, but by engineering consultants that are under us. So we have a turf specialist that is working on this, and we have a civil engineer who's based out of the district that is going to be doing a lot of the engineering expertise. We're doing more of just the planning facilitation, but again, we're more than happy to discuss how our fees are structured as we keep moving with the district.
I like that train of thought. We'll bundle. You save money when you bundle. I remember when you guys originally presented the athletic turfs to us, you had like a baseball diamond in one corner and a softball diamond. Is that still how that'll be? And the reason I ask that is we've started getting into like Special Olympics and things like that, and that would be awesome to have a field for those kids to be able to play games and things like that on.
And I don't know if John wants to comment, but that is some of the early conversation that we've had, yes.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Any other discussion on this? This is going to come to us at the next regular meeting. Any other information board members would need to vote on this at the next regular meeting? On the 11th, right? Yeah. All right, thank you. I'm going to tell you thanks for the presentation and stuff, but you're probably going to be up here next. So we will move on to subject 10.03, the Sudlow renovation. I'm going to turn it over to the superintendent, who's going to turn it over to a couple other people too.
Well, thank you. Our first phase is well on its way. It's very exciting. It's very energizing to see Bray meet with the teams at the buildings as we sit down and we look into getting our first phase of phase one off and running, which is Sudlow. We ran across something that we think is worth bringing to the school board. The topic that you're going to see tonight has been to the Long Range Facility Committee. So sorry, Bruce, when we sent you into shock the day we shared this with you. But we know that this is something we've got to bring in front of the board to seek your guidance. As we are doing and as we are moving forward and seeing these wonderful environments, what does it look like if we build a brand new building there? And so we've asked Bray, because we are at a crossroads. We are in a time where we've got to make a decision very quickly. Otherwise, our timeline will be thrown off. And so for us, we wanted to bring this for the board, have a discussion, as it does have impacts on the rest of our long-range facility plan. So, John, thanks for putting this together and the perspective and the notion of, what if? So thanks, John.
So tonight we're here because we're kind of at a fork in the road. We can turn left or turn right. And I will tell you, if we turn left, the result is wonderful. If we turn right, the result is wonderful. So I think we can't lose. But where this is coming from is all along the way, you have a group of leaders sitting over here and here who are challenging us, asking some questions, and we're going to kind of explain what the question has been and what that means. So in the original phase one master plan, we identified Sudlow Middle School for expansion and renovation. In that, we knew that there was a total cost of the whole phase one project needs, which were the projects listed. One of them was the turf fields we just talked about. With Sudlow, the considerations were that we were looking at an addition and renovation for Sudlow as it's being adapted into a middle school. The existing 7th and 8th grade programs had moved into all the available spaces within the buildings. Improving the building would allow sufficient space for the addition of 6th grade, as well as the additional resources and programs and services being utilized in the school and the growth that comes with that when we add the 6th grade. It also gives us the ability to improve and enhance the vision of education in the district by creating new and improved environments that we hope will aid in student and family retention, as well as aiding in the attraction of new staff to the district. In these initial considerations, we felt that what was identified was an addition and renovation. This was based on criteria that was developed through the facility study, so this long-range planning process. There was a need for collaboration and flexible use areas, enhanced safety and security, but the big one was adapting a house model into the existing campus, where it was more just arranged with classrooms around corridors. So by adapting to a house model, what your ILDs would tell you, it's taking a big building and making it small. You're creating smaller houses, which create smaller learning communities that improve the relational and social development of the students. It should help in enhancing their academic engagement. And the goal is an environment where student outcomes are improved throughout. Sudlow was identified as the first project as we moved into this. Some of the very specific things we needed were cafeteria was too small, even for what the building is currently. So expanding and improving the efficiency for lunch will help create more time for instruction. Additional classroom space due to the additional students in the building, as well as programs, and then to meet the needs of a house approach. Additional gymnasium space, again, due to a larger population size. There is currently a single large gym and one smaller multi-purposing kind of gym there, but there's not enough space to get through PE programs. It was critical that whatever solution happens, the Creative Arts Academy is maintained within that building, but that does put space constraints on the availability of utilizing rooms within the building. So we need to maintain a lock on what's needed by the CAA. We want to create opportunities for enhanced family and consumer sciences, technology education, and STEM in the building. This is something that has been a target goal for the middle school level, and we can respond to that through any improvement. As well, we want to maintain and improve our site logistics, our ingress and egress for buses, cars, especially at Sudlow where there's lots and lots of walkers. We want to make sure we can improve that site safety and provide good outdoor activity space. What we determined is to be able to do this, there wasn't enough site area until the Washington building was demolished, which that is now proceeding, so that allows the opportunity to expand. The original picture looked like something like this, where we had the existing Sudlow building. We were looking at a sizable addition with some green space, some additional parking, some outdoor play space. That view was based on a targeted master plan program. So way back in the beginning of the planning process, a group of leaders in the district sat down and created a target program. So it's a list of spatial requirements for a middle school building. And it was meant to be a standard that you could apply to any building, whether it was new or an addition renovation. It gives you all the things that you're shooting towards. However, that initial program, it arrived at just south of 173,000 square feet. As we were looking at Sudlow specific, we also had a budget that needed to include a certain amount of improvements. So that's ADA accessibility, building envelope, that's the exterior, building interior, some mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection improvements throughout. And so then this project also considered remodeling for select portions of the building, just to be able to reconfigure space based on what the proposed project needs were. That was putting a project cost at about $57 million, 57 and a half. It was $57.6 million. At that time, the question was asked, could we just get rid of it and build a new building? Well, the proposed cost was around a little over $70 million, and that was based on this 173,000 square feet of space. So it was quite a big difference in cost. So the question got asked all along the way, do we still need 173,000 square feet? Well, no. One of the first things that we've done as we've started digging into this project is working pretty intensely with the building staff themselves. What are the things that we really need to be able to solve this problem here? What does a house look like? And how does that house impact the area that's needed to be able to solve the problem for Sudlow specific? That has dramatically reduced the space needs for any project. So it's come down to 160,000 square feet of building space needed. As we look at the addition and renovation project, we still have a certain amount of improvement to the existing building. So that's building envelope, building interior, ADA accessibility, the fire protection, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. All those repairs still exist, and that still keeps our project budget at about $57.5 million. So the question was asked, could you compare what it might take to do a new building? So we ran some scenarios, running a comparative to both standalone new building construction and then retaining a portion or portions of the existing building. What we found is the cost of a standalone new facility has come down kind of proportionately because it is based on that lower square footage. So in the range of $66 to $68 million. It's still quite a bit more than the projected cost for this addition renovation. However, what we found is if we could retain a small portion of the existing, there is a potential that you could get a predominantly new building solution in the range of $61 to $63 million. And what that would be is the existing Sub-O gymnasium, the large gymnasium, would stay, and pretty much the majority of the rest of the building would go away. And this new addition would be constructed that would have the majority of all the new space. What this does is it allows that new construction could be done while the existing building's in session, meaning you could build a whole addition next to the existing building without disrupting the school inside. And then once complete, the existing building could be demolished to the extent that's necessary of the project. It's a different kind of approach. What we kind of thought is that you would keep the existing gym, park a new middle school adjacent. Likely it would have some additional gym space added on as well. You'd remove a majority of the existing building, and then that east end of the property would still be available for green space, outdoor play, and then any parking and other improvements. But it also gives us some ability to rethink the site logistics of how we might approach separation of cars, buses, walking kids coming to the school. It is a wildly different thought process, and I think that's why we're happy to say that no matter whether we would turn left or turn right, I think there's a wonderful solution here. There is the consideration that addition and remodeling preserves this historic Sudlow building, which is a mainstay right on Locust Street. There are prior investments to that campus that remain intact no matter what you do. And it still allows us to create a new vision to that campus when adding on. The cons to this, though, are that because the amount of update and improvement needed to handle MEP systems and some of the fire protection concerns and the building envelope, it does not mean that every single room in that existing building gets renovated. So there will be rooms at the end that still look like the old rooms. We'll try to get as much fresh paint and flooring in them as possible, but there are areas that will be relatively untouched. They might get new mechanical systems, but the rooms would stay the same. Site logistics would remain largely unchanged with the addition renovation project. There will still be some challenges to work through ADA accessibility, and there will be some limitations given that we're working with existing room sizes and configuration. We do have a really nice approach that allows us to kind of think through how this house concept looks in this addition remodeling, so I think that can be successful. I don't think we would ever recommend get rid of everything and build new because there's still such a dramatic cost disparity, and it's really hard to say spend so much more money. However, if you were to consider mostly new construction, you would retain the existing gym and then provide new education space adjacent to that, which would essentially give you a lot of flexibility in how you respond to the correct room size and configuration in the building. So it allows us to approach in a new way. We're not limited by the current room configuration of the old building. Your investment would be predominantly new construction. There would not be that renovation remodeling component, so the cost basis does look different. Everything would be completely accessible and code compliant, and it gives us the opportunity to improve site logistics. However, that old historic piece would go away, and that's a hard one for us all to think about. And so it's not one to be taken lightly. The new construction would be placed over existing geothermal, so we'll either have to move it or reconsider how we approach our environmental challenges on site. And the site area, no matter which project we do, it's always going to have some logistic challenges. You all can see from the Google map view, it's a long, narrow site that presents its own limitations, and we can't access it from Locust. We do have to come off of Pleasant and possibly off of Eastern Avenue. However, that alone presents some challenges with how you can handle site logistics. So I talked through that really fast. It's a lot to really have to kind of think through, so I'd be happy to talk through questions, answers, or anything.
Director Barnes.
I didn't see anything here about timing of the renovation of the existing building. How long would that project take? And are we talking about, the course of 3 summers? Because clearly you can't do that while school's in session. I'm just sort of interested in knowing the timetable on that. So that's the first question. Second question is, I was trying to do calculation of cost per square foot. FFE also included in these projections. Do you have soft costs for both?
I don't believe we have full FFE, mostly because the district tends to purchase FFE separately for these projects. We can add what that component is to both of these approaches. As far as the sequence of how something works, when you're doing an addition remodeling of this scale, the column on the left, we would build new addition and start using those spaces for moving students into, so that we could sequentially work our way through the other building and remodel so that we're not disrupting the course of the education day. It's unclear as to how many phases that would be, but it would be phased construction where we take a wing of a floor of a building and move ourselves likely from one wing to the next, to the next, to the next. And it always works best if you start on the top floor and work your way down. The one caveat to that is that mechanical, electrical, fire protection is going to be disruptive to all floors all the time. When you do the mostly new construction, it is a shorter timetable because it does not require that phasing of construction, which means there's less disruption when students move from the old building to the new. They're moving into a new education environment. The other piece can go away with less disruption.
Director Poston.
So if it was entirely new construction, how many floors would this involve in?
Because of the footprint that's available, we think this would likely be 3. In talking with the building, looking at the house approach, they think the 3 level actually works well because it allows us to put 6th, 7th, and 8th on separate floors, which is good for control between those floor levels and grade levels.
And you probably don't know this, and Josh, maybe you do, but so what have been the major building costs that have been added to Sudlow in the last 20 years? I assume the big gym, but what else major has been added to the existing building?
Project-wise, I think, well, the gym is obviously a large one. The front office addition was another big one. And we've touched a few of the bathrooms throughout the building. Oh yes, the outdoor learning space was another big one.
There was a multi-million-dollar addition put on in 2000. That's where the new gym was put on, and then the whole building was air conditioned. Then we replaced all the boilers and everything with geothermal. We replaced lockers. We replaced all the entry doors and key locks, and 4 of the bathrooms have been remodeled. Band room's been given new flooring. Several other rooms in the first floor had flooring replaced. We've had new windows.
New office space.
Hmm?
Your office space.
Well, yeah, the office, they built the new office on, that was about 45 years ago.
No, I'm still scratching my head.
Director Beck.
So I guess my first thought is we also have SMART that needs work as well. And in the interest of sort of equity and equity of investment in our students, what?
Director Beck, we're only talking about Sudlow right now, though. That's what was on the agenda, and you're getting off course with talking about another building.
I can't ask if we could do the same thing to another building?
It has been brought up on the Long Range Facilities Planning Committee, but I don't want to start talking about SMART when the agenda item is clearly Sudlow.
Okay, well, never mind then.
Well, you can ask questions about Sudlow. Director Posh.
I'll try to get around that. So are there other junior highs that are in more disrepair than Sudlow?
Sudlow was deemed to be one that needed one of the higher levels of investment in it to skirt around things. We haven't dug deeper into the SMART building yet, but likely it will yield similar sort of results in that our program area will likely adjust based on the idea that we're actually talking about current need as opposed to a model target for the district. So that is a discussion to come later. We just aren't there yet. There are unfortunately several buildings through the facility analysis that have some significant need for investment. One of the things that was happening with the Sudlow project is it needed a considerable amount of work. Some of that was offset by the fact that we had to go into the building and tear apart things and remodel. So a lot of the issues related to ADA accessibility kind of get solved because there's not enough plumbing fixtures in the building to meet code requirement. So we have to reconstruct bathrooms. So that kind of solves one of those issues. It's not unfortunately a super clear cut and dry answer on that because of the nature of mixing building improvement with renovation and remodeling.
Director Kleindro.
When the gym was added on, didn't that require us to do the ADA accessibility within the building since you put an addition on versus just remodeling the inside?
The gym addition itself, you have the gym stage, and then there's an attached stairwell, mechanical space. That's all meeting should meet closer to current day standard of code. It does. The office piece, the newer addition to the building, we've looked at ways to see if it's possible to keep that. It does present some challenges because essentially we'd have to figure out how to construct back into the footprint of something that's getting removed. So there's a little bit of a concern of how do you sequence that work, but we would continue to explore those options.
Then my next question is, what is going to be the cost to replace the geothermal if we're building over the top of it?
So the cost for mechanical systems is included in the range of projected cost for the project. So that is component of what the solution is.
My other comment is $10 million is a lot, to say, oh, it's just 10 million. 10 million is a lot to build this new thing. And I think, you're going to ask, what other information do I need? I do need to know what our intentions are for the other buildings, because if we're just doing it to one and not the others, there is an equity issue that would make me, I need a name.
And I think the way the committee thought about this was the $10 million increase for a completely new building is probably not something that makes sense. It's a lot more money. That in-between cost, that's about $5 to $6 million more, gives you mostly new, except for that existing gym, and that's something that is within reach. However, it's understandable that there's a significant difference of what you're talking about. You're talking about either retaining and working within the historic fabric of that existing Sudlow building, or creating a new vision that's, yes, it retains a small portion of that campus, but it is going to be mostly new construction.
Director Potts.
The new construction estimate would not then include the cost of the demo and the engineering fees and abatement fees connected to the demolition of Sudlow, right?
It did include the demolition, correct. So there's demolition built into that cost.
Okay. Just a general comment. Reflecting back, when we did a public survey that we sent out to the public, and one of the items on there was building a new junior high. And as I recall, it received very low ratings from the public. My concern is that we've been able to do some things that I don't think most people would have thought we would have been able to accomplish with support of the public. I'm talking about closing elementary schools, about the long-range facility plan, and how we have been very faithful in doing what we said we were going to do. And we have developed that trust with our public and taxpayers. And I just wonder if this may be a bridge too far. And I do think what you do for one 1918 building, there would be enormous pressure to do the same for the one in the West End. And rightly so.
Hang on a second. Director Barnes, did you have your? Oh. To clarify on Director Potts' thing, the new school was completely up in a whole different part of town, though, right? When we did that survey, it was
In the survey, it was up in the Prairie Heights area.
okay. Director Beck.
Yeah, as far as information that I would need to make a decision like this, I would need to know going forward what other options would be laid out. Because again, as Director Potts just said, what we do for one 1918 building, we need to consider what we do for another. The other question I had was, we're given this option of sort of in between, keep the existing gym and build mostly new. What I don't see in there, one of the things that many of us said needed to be available was the outdoor space needed to be constructed so that there's like a track of some sort, right? And a practice field of some sort, along with some playgrounds that, the neighborhood can use if necessary. Does that fit into this potential
Yes.
footprint?
If you're just asking about the diagrammatic site plan, that was only to just show where a general siting of an addition would be placed. All those other features would still be
Possible.
correct.
And then I know expanding parking and separating was one of the options. And I wasn't quite sure if the old building was removed, I mean, is that area something that could be used for that expanded parking then?
It would lend itself to creating a separate drive loop and parking area separated from the one that aligns along Pleasant. And
Okay.
so that's where you likely could gain some safety between where the buses and where the parents are driving to.
And then finally, in terms of time, if I understood correctly your answer to Director Barnes' question, if we were to renovate and expand, the expansion can happen in a certain amount of time, and then moving students sequentially into that expansion as construction is done. So it's not necessarily limited to summers, even though it is using some of the building, correct?
If you were going to try to do it only through the summers, it might take a decade to do.
Yeah,
It's going to be a really long project.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of opportunities that you could explore to help improve the time response, but we cannot remodel the whole building at the same time.
Right.
So it becomes a question of how many classrooms are needed at a bare minimum to facilitate the curriculum every day. And the teachers in the room will probably throw daggers at me, but it means that teachers don't get to claim a room and keep it for the whole term. They literally have to share rooms so that you're always working with that bare number of rooms through construction. That frees up a certain number of rooms that you can go in and start remodeling. If we don't like doing that during the course of the school day, it can get done as second shift work. So school ends for the day, the contractors come in, do that loud, noisy remodeling. They leave, kids come back and work. They just don't work inside of the construction area.
So there are options for making sure that even if we renovate and expand, the time frame could be something similar to building a new building.
It'll be a little slower, but it won't.
Not like
it won't
decades
preclude that. Yeah, it won't preclude that you can't educate kids in the building.
Okay.
Director Poston?
If you go strictly the renovation route, what are the chances that we're going to run into some things that are unforeseen? I mean, do you feel confident that you've taken into consideration anything that you might run into?
I cannot vouch that there would be no unforeseeable conditions, and that's because we're dealing with a building that's been there since the early 1900s. It's had changes over time. Some of what you would want to see through an investigation is just buried inside of construction, and so unfortunately, you just can't see everything that you would need to see to be able to confidently predict what you're going to hit. There is a good chunk of budget that's attributed to what we would call contingency in the project, and that's basically to cover the fact that you're gonna uncover things that are going to need to be addressed, and it's hard to know what those are until you start uncovering them. When you build new, that situation of unforeseeables diminishes considerably. There is a little bit of that when you keep a portion of the building, but really the only other thing that you run into is what's below the ground, because everything else is new construction above ground.
What about from just a pure structural standpoint? I mean, have you been able to take close enough look that structurally the building sound, that there isn't going to be a major issue with the building?
So we have to honor the load-bearing aspects of that building. As long as we continue to honor the way the load is distributed in there, we're okay. The building envelope from the exterior appears to be intact and stable. It doesn't look like it has suffered any settlement or change that would have caused any red flags with the integrity of that building envelope. We would not want to go in and start radically changing how the building is structured. We would likely do more damage than good if we did anything like that.
So you will be limited on maybe on some of the class sizes just from a load bearing standpoint.
Correct.
Yeah.
Director Beck?
Sorry, one more question. So it's currently heated with geothermal, and that would stay with a renovation and expansion, correct?
we're going to disrupt that no matter what. The addition renovation is going to build into geothermal fields, so we're going to disrupt that. That system is due for an upgrade anyway. It's not functioning to its best capacity any longer, so it just becomes a discussion of whether we move it or depart from geothermal and take on a new avenue for our heating cooling systems.
Okay.
Any other questions before I go? I guess a piece of information I would need, and I actually work construction and worked on schoolhouses, so I'm pretty well versed in this. I would want to know with how many change orders we had when we did significant expansions, and I'll give you an example right up the road here that went way over budget because of unforeseens. It happens all the time, and Director Poston was asking about that. You have, different piping, different things like that, duct work, all kinds of things that you run into that you don't know about, especially when you start getting into walls and then you find out things weren't shored up and things like that. It happens all the time. And it is very disruptive when you go in and you're adding on to a building. I remember when we did John Deere Middle School over in Moline, we had to plywood off an area for a hallway just for contractors to go up and stuff while the kids are, right next to you going. And then you run into some safety issues and things like that. So I would just be curious on that, because I think no matter what, I understand what this is at for the additions, but I will 99.9% sure that it will run over budget because something will happen somewhere, and how much more it would run over. As far as the timelines and stuff, it'd take way longer to do an addition because of moving all those things around, and you have to do everything to prep ahead of time for that, and you run into weather and things like that. And I agree, and obviously I brought this up in a long-range plan. I would like to see what's going to be for the other schools and stuff, but I understand that this is what we're talking about today. Because I do feel if we're going to put that significant of an investment in, we need to do that in some other areas as well. I think aesthetically, like having a building more towards the middle of that block looks a little better than over there, and if it can help out with parking and picking up and dropping off, anytime we can help out with that, that's always a great thing, especially if you drop kids off at school now and you see how that stuff, it's nuts. But so I would be very curious on, I think that one went over like 10 million or something just off the top of my head, and that was just putting a pool and a auditorium in, and we're talking about a whole another school essentially.
The renovations would be obviously more complicated also in terms of getting inside the building. So, we're going to try to plan around student activities while you're inside that building and doing these renovations. And there's likely going to be interruptions and contractors doing work and things like that. So down the road, they'll come forward and say, well, you slowed me down this day or this day because you had to interrupt our service by doing something else. Interrupting classroom space, if you're pounding on a wall right next to another wall or near it, you're going to hear some of this stuff going on. Not that you wouldn't hear it if a building's going up right next door, and some kids might stare at a window at a piece of equipment doing some work, much like I would. But I think disruption within the building would be pretty significant while we're trying to renovate it while they're attending school.
I was just going to say that kind of the industry average on overages tends to float in about a 3 to 5% range. However, I think what you're talking about, the experience at Central High School, it's impossible to say that that's the experience you'd have here, but typically that 3 to 5% average varies wildly depending on the preparedness of what you're trying to do. And so I think it'd be really hard to give you a number or even a range on this, but we would know you're absolutely correct. There will be overages. there's going to be too many unforeseens. We would like to build that into an allowance into the project to make sure that the overall budget doesn't get exceeded, but that's still a piece of money that's attributed to covering the unknowns that's not covering education space.
Okay. And then the other thing for myself, what I would like to see, and I don't know if you work with Mid-America on this or not, because obviously if you're doing new, everything's more energy efficient and stuff, right? So what I would want to know versus the remodel versus new, how much money we would save on that. And the reason I say that, because that money comes out of the general fund, and anytime we can save money out of the general fund, that goes to the classroom. And that's where I want to make sure that we're making the most bang, because at the end of the day, whatever we decide to do, we got to make sure we're impacting the students. So I don't know if that's like too quick of a turnaround to get that.
I can answer that
Okay.
now. The new building would tend to run just general lights and power about $1.25 per square foot for consumption of services. So that's running air conditioning, lights, power. Your current Sudlow building is running at, I can't read my own screen. I'll have this in 1 second. Usually by the time you add in custodial and maintenance, you tend to add a couple of bucks per square foot. So it is projected often that a building would run in the $3 to $4 range per square foot by the time you add in custodial and maintenance and all that. Your current building is, your total cost for operating the building is $3.52 per square foot. That's maintenance, your custodial staffing, lights, power, energy, and your general utility cost is
If you need time to put it together, as long as you have it for me. Oh. If we start talking about solar, Mid-America would be right here telling us right now.
you're close to $2 a square foot in that building right now. I can get you a more exact number.
Yeah, if you can do that with the remodel versus new, just I would appreciate it.
Does that $1.25 include custodial and maintenance fee? No. So you're looking really at two different numbers there.
And typically when you have construction that's new, you really don't look at maintenance other than scrubbing floors, cleaning. There's really not going to be any significant repair work for 10 years on that building. Whereas part of your consideration with the existing building is there will still be ongoing maintenance that's going to happen to that building. You'll still have to repair pieces in that building no matter what.
I guess what he's trying to say is the maintenance costs out of the general fund going down the road in a new building would be less than a renovated building.
For about a decade.
Yeah.
Realistic, I was just talking about gas and electric, but I didn't even think about that, but thank you for that. It's a lot to think about.
That's how we felt too.
Um, the classroom sizes that we have now in there, and then when that gets remodeled, I think Director Poston kind of asked on this. Obviously, those are kind of set in stone with their dimensions, so that, I mean, and that limits it a little bit too. What would those classroom sizes be compared to what if it was a new building or even the addition, right? The rooms are probably going to be a little bigger.
The new addition rooms will be closer to a 900 square foot room size. They predominantly will be more squarish in shape as well. The current rooms, I can't tell you what the current square foot is. I don't have that in front of me, but they are long and narrow rooms. They're more rectangular in nature, which just become a little less flexible. They're predominantly constructed in a way that the long end of the room, the far end was the instructional end of the room, which puts a little greater distance from the student sitting to the back of the room to the instructor. When you square up that room, there's better proximity for all students to where the materials are being taught.
Okay. And I think the last one I got. Do you know what is the age on the roof on Sudlow now? The age on the roof of Sudlow. When was the last time it was replaced? No, the roof.
We can.
I bet it's not been anytime recent though, but
Okay. 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 Director Poston.
So on the remodel, you've got that at 57.5. And then on the new construction, you've got a range of 61.6 to 63. Which one of those figures do you feel the most comfortable with?
Currently we're sitting at the low end of that, but the range covered a little bit of fluctuation as we move from 23 to 24, just the concern of not knowing if our material costs are going to go up or down. That range gives us a little bit of buffer to cover inflationary increase.
Okay, so if you use the 61.6 figures, so then you're looking at right around $4 million more. Could you run into that? Could you run into $4 million worth of overages on the remodel?
That would be, I'll tell you this.
And I'm sure if it to President Goss's question as far as the roof, I mean, you could eat up $4 million real fast for the roof, I would think.
Yeah, that'd be about just shy of 7% in terms of overages. So
is that possible?
Keep in mind the industry average floats just below 5%. So it's not saying that it's destined, but it is not unrealistic. And President Goza, it's about $1.60 per square foot to operate your utilities, gas, water, electric, all of that in your current building. A new building should run somewhere between $1.25 and $1.30 per square foot. So about a 30-cent per square foot savings just in utilities across what would be about 160,000 square foot program area.
Director Kleindrum.
President Gosa, this is more directed to you. What is our timeline as a board in making this decision? Some of us want to know, what about the other buildings?
The agenda committee too.
Yeah, I know, but you're the one that answers this. We want to know about other buildings before we make a decision here. are we having another discussion in September and then voting, or what's our timeline?
The sooner the better. And the reason I say that is our team's fast arriving at a standstill where we can't further the project unless we know what direction we're going. We've documented the existing building. We're at the point where we are ready to start doing that remodeling delineation in the existing building. We've mapped out what the basic partie of an addition looks like. So that's just basic kind of concept of how you approach that. We determined that partie actually works well if it was a standalone new building, but unfortunately, it's going to hinder progress on documentation work if we don't decide relatively soon. What that means is it delays the project by however many weeks that we're talking about, which we would always work hard to try to keep up with our schedule, but it impacts when a building goes out to bid, which impacts when it starts construction, which actually impacts when it's complete and ready for students to occupy.
Hang on one second.
So it's a series of dominoes that tip.
John, you want to go first? All right, superintendent.
And make a recommendation based off the feedback that we've heard, that we would go back and see exactly what the necessary adjustments we would need to make, the domino effect throughout our long-range facility plan, to see exactly what we can still accomplish, and see what the impacts of our other long-range facility plans. I think it's very well said that we made a promise to our community, and that this is what we said we were going to do. And if we have to put something back, take something off, then that the board needs to hear that consideration. Is that a fair statement for the administration to put together?
One of the things I was going to ask, because SMART's been brought up a lot, right? Would there be enough time for your team to put something together, go through the long-range facilities plan, and we could have a discussion on that on the September 11th meeting?
So Josh and I were just talking, we could probably have some quick conversations with the SMART staff in the same nature that we started the Sudlow project and come up with some quick calculations there. I think that's doable.
Okay. Does that kind of answer your...
Can either the renovation, addition, or the new school even proceed until Washington is gone?
Design work, yes. Construction, yes. So the demolition doesn't impact the construction of an addition. It only impacts the area that we were reserving for green space, playground, the track space there.
Okay, so that wouldn't hold up any of this. Okay.
Does anyone have any other questions on this? And then I'll poll you and see if that'll be good to have a discussion on the plans for SMART on September 11th. That is the date of the next regular meeting, right? September 11th, that's what I thought. And then we would have the 25th to do something, so it'd give us quite a bit of time. Does anyone have any other questions on this part of Sudlow? All right, and then just nod your head. Everyone's good with having a discussion on the game plan with SMART on September 11th to kind of tie the two together and go forward. Okay. Doable? You guys can do that?
We can do that.
And then just get Bruce and I the right calendar invites and we'll show up at the right locations. Is there anything else on this item? All right, we will move on to thank you guys for walking through this with us. I know we gave you a long list of marching orders, so we appreciate that. The next subject for discussion is 10.04, policies for board. Second discussion, I'll turn it over to Director Kleindrill.
On policy 601.01, it's on the school calendar, and we had originally taken out the 180 days because we do, as a board, vote, and we've been doing the 1080 hours. But there is always that option to go back to 180 days. So I was talking to Brenda about it. We think we need to put the 180 days back into the policy because there may be a year where that's the way we want to go for whatever reason. And if you take it out, then you got to change the policy before you can even do the vote. So that would be the only change, is that we would put in there that it's either 180 days or 1,080 hours, just because we do have an option according to the state. Any other questions? Allison?
Yeah, just one little thing. It says in the green part there on that one, it says only a minimum of, or a maximum of 30 hours delivered primarily of the internet. Shouldn't that be on the internet or by way of the internet or something?
Oh, where it says the minimum?
Well, no, just the word of. It's delivered
yeah.
primarily of the internet doesn't make sense. So
Yeah.
by the internet or on the internet.
So Brenda, if you want to just correct that one. Thank you.
Yeah. Otherwise, I understand the concept.
Yeah.
Do you have questions? Can we ask questions about the other policies now?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to register my disagreement with policy 503.07. I will vote yes for it because it is required by law, but I think it's a headache for all of the teachers. It's one more thing that they have to do. It applies to all nicknames, and I've seen some forms circulating that people in other districts have been required to fill out for any nickname, but I also think it's discriminatory and unwelcoming. So that's my personal opinion, and I wanted to voice that.
Any other questions? We will be voting on this at the next regular meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Klein Jerome. We'll move on to administrative reports. Board requests. Is there any board request? All right. Board reflections. We'll start with Director Beck.
I was really excited to hear about Student Success Week, and I think we had a lot of really good questions and suggestions. And I also just have been reflecting on the fact that we are off to yet another school year, and things seem to be, we're kind of like right back in it. It's like we never had summer. So that's it.
Thank you. Director Poston.
Well, for me, it's the discussion on the turf fields and the Sudlow renovation. This is going to be huge for the district, and there's still a lot of questions and a lot of things we have to sort through. But I think this is going to be very productive down the road.
Thank you, Director Hayes.
Mine were the Success Week as well, and the updating of the district properties.
Thank you, Director Hayes. Director Barnes.
I really appreciated the discussion of Success Week, but I also wanted to thank my fellow board members for attending the kickoff and inspiring me with your thoughts on the kickoff for the district and all the employees. I wrote down inspire or retire, and I'm going to be asking everyone from now on who has a perfect kid. So thank you. That was inspiring to me, and appreciate you attending and sharing that with all of us.
Thank you, Director Barnes. Director Potts.
I would say this conversation and the subsequent one we'll have concerning the disposition of Sudlow and the other buildings is probably one of the most monumental and key ones we'll be having in a long time.
Thank you, Director Potts. Director Klein-Jerome.
I also agree that that discussion between Sudlow, Smart, what we're doing with the other junior high buildings is very important. As much as I thought the first day that in service where we all were together, it was brought up in the agenda committee when we were talking about staff development time, that maybe taking that away next year. And I was like, no, don't take it away. People felt really good about it, the big gathering, everybody there. I would fight to keep that in there. I thought that was a great way to start the year. I'm also appreciate the fact that both employees and the public and parents are willing to come to open forum and express their concerns to us.
Thank you, Director Klein-Jerome. Superintendent Schneckloff.
The upgrading of our facilities is absolutely vital to the direction that we're heading. And the conversation tonight was really about continuing to build trust in the community. And I think by having that conversation, I'm really proud of Josh and his team to bring that forward, because it's something we thought that our board would run away in on. So I'm really proud of that.
Thank you, Superintendent Schneckloff. My big takeaway was all the discussions that we had tonight. I think they're very beneficial. Everyone has a unique perspective on things, and it's interesting to see how the discussions have progressed from when we first were on the board to now, and the different things that we look at and consider when making some of these difficult decisions. And with that, Director Potts, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries, meeting adjourned.